Hey, Paul Rabelais here. Purpose of this video is to talk about how blended families can leave things to their spouse and kids without causing, World War III. So a lot of blended families out there, and a blended family is, husband and wife. Perhaps they were married and then had kids, and then they either divorced or their spouse died, and now husband and wife get married and they each have their own kids. Sometimes it's his kids and her kids. Sometimes it's yours, mine, and ours. And so obviously that creates the potential for some conflict, particularly when one of those spouses passes away and the children of that spouse are now having to deal with their stepfather or stepmother. Sometimes those relationships aren't the greatest and money's involved. So, like I said, World War III can erupt. So what I want to do is just go through maybe 3 different ways a person who is in a blended family or a marriage, how they could leave things to their children or their spouse or the combination. So reminds me of, I was working with a couple recently, and the wife indicated, blended family, she had her kids, he had his kids. The wife indicated to me that she had had a conversation with her father before he died. The father was leaving his daughter, the wife, an inheritance, and he wanted to request that she leave some of that to her children. So yes, married couple, she has some inherited money, and if she dies first, she's going to leave a chunk of that directly to her kids. Her husband's going to get no interest in what she leaves her kids. So that's kind of option number 1, is just leave things directly to the kids when the first spouse dies. Keeps the kids perhaps from having to wait for their inheritance until their step-parent dies. So that's one, leave it to the kids. A second option is leave it to the spouse. And had many situations where blended family, husband and wife, they each have their own kids. And maybe the husband tells me, we bought this house together, and if I die, I want my wife to own the house. She can do whatever she wants to with it. She can keep it. She can sell it. She can leave it to her kids. She can leave it to her next husband. I want to leave this to my spouse. So that's really option number 2, is just leave things directly to your spouse. Now, when you do that, you have to really kind of understand that once you leave something to your spouse, it may not get back to your children. Your spouse may leave it to your spouse's children. But some people are okay with that because they want to make sure they provide for their spouse as much as they can. And then the third option is really kind of a combination of the two. It's when, let's take the husband, for example. He says, I'm going to die first. I'm older. I'm a man. I'm going to die first. What I want to do is I want to leave assets that I own, in a trust for the benefit of my wife. And if she needs to use it, she can use it. But when she dies, whatever's left in that trust, I want that to go back to my kids. Or maybe he says, I want that to go to our kids. So it's a way for you to leave things for the benefit of your spouse, but if your spouse doesn't consume or use or spend all of it, it goes back to your beneficiaries, whoever that might be, when both you and your spouse pass away. So that's a way to kind of provide for your spouse, but also protect the children. Couple of other notes that always, clutter this up. A lot of people have 401k accounts, IRA accounts. They don't even think, or they don't put much thought into it. And it's just kind of default or traditional where, people leave their retirement accounts to their spouse. And even in a blended family, not much thought goes into that, because if the husband's biggest asset is his IRA, and he just does what everybody else does, names his wife as the beneficiary. If he dies, that goes to her. Well, his children are likely to be cut out of that. They're not likely to get anything. So maybe he could consider, naming a percentage of the IRA to the wife, a percentage to the kids, and then trusts can be named as beneficiaries of IRA. So there's other options there. And then just know you can treat different assets differently. You may want to treat the home a certain way. You may want to treat inherited money a different way. You may want to treat retirement accounts a different way. So you're not locked into any one of those scenarios, for all of the assets. So again, blended families, there is often much greater potential for conflict when the first spouse dies, because now the surviving spouse and the children of the deceased spouse they don't trust each other. They feel like they've got to fight over the money. There's skepticism. They're each hiring their own lawyers. And so really getting this right on the front end is important. And quite frankly, it's the same issues that traditional families face. It's just the potential for escalation is greater in the blended family situation. So be aware of that. Make sure you take care of your business, and go Tigers.